Hello everyone and welcome back to another installment from our webinar series Straight from the Horse's Mouth. Sustainability issues can change over time. Is your business strategy evolving with it? Areas like the circular economy, scope-free carbon emissions, or social sustainability might become more important to your stakeholders. To stay competitive, it's essential your strategy is up to date. Adam Weller, the Sustainability Manager at Waste Management, will explain the company's updated sustainability strategy and how it responds to changes in stakeholders' expectations over the last 6 years. Adam will also share how Waste Management is providing new services to support a carbon-neutral future and a more circular way of operating. Here's a sneak preview.
Not only do materiality assessments allow organizations to make more considered decisions, the process itself contributes directly to deeper stakeholder engagement. If you engage an organization like thinkstep to do this alongside you, then obviously it sends a clear message to your stakeholders that you are committed to a detailed and robust engagement process. It says your views really matter to us as one of our stakeholders.
Back in 2018, it's just like, how do we know what is a sustainable company? How do we know what is relevant for future focused waste company? And what we did is a materiality exercise. So our good friends at thinkstep did some work for us in 2018 to identify the material issues that are relevant for us. We currently have a carbon reduction of 2.5% reduction per year. Now, that 2.5% reduction was best practice in 2017 when we created it, aiming for a 2-degree warming world. We now know a 2-degree warming world is actually not safe, and it needs to be a 1.5-degree warming world. But at 1.5 degree, actually the target needs to be a 4.2% reduction, which is quite a big step up. So Waste Management is looking at incorporating a 4.2% reduction of our emissions between 2020 and 2025, and then out to carbon neutral by 2050.
Adam joins Martin Fryer, our Head of Strategy and Impact New Zealand. Martin will discuss how we develop and update strategy with materiality and maturity assessments. This helps you understand what is important to your stakeholders and is a strong foundation for your sustainability strategy and projects. With that, let's get started.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Martin Fryer tōku ingoa. Martin Fryer, Head of Strategy and Impact New Zealand for thinkstep. Welcome to this webinar on evolving your sustainability strategy with Waste Management. I'm delighted to welcome you all this afternoon to talk about a subject that's very close to my heart. So as I said, my name is Martin Fryer, Head of Strategy and Impact New Zealand for thinkstep. I've been with the organisation for just over 2 years, and prior to that had sustainability managers roles in large corporates here in New Zealand and in the UK. The topic of sustainability strategy and actually integrating strategy into business strategy is a topic that's close to my heart, something that I've focused on throughout my kind of career. And I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by Adam Weller, Sustainability Manager at Waste Management. So Adam has been leading the charge at Waste Management of integrating sustainability into their business and operations, and also realizing some business opportunities, which is the kind of ultimate aim of sustainability professionals. So Adam, thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. I've just got a couple of slides in terms of an introduction, because the starting point, I think, for a lot of organizations when they're developing a strategy is to undertake a materiality assessment. So going out to stakeholders, understanding what their views are of you as an organization, and your role and contribution to this thing called sustainability. Why do we do materiality? It obviously provides a foundation for a sustainability strategy that meets corporate reporting requirements. So it's a requirement of both integrated reporting and global reporting initiative frameworks. So very important in terms of corporate disclosures. It also invites a cross-section of important stakeholders, internal and external, to contribute topics that they consider most important. So it really is a deep dive into what your stakeholders think of your organization, which is really valuable in terms of pulling together a sustainability strategy and meeting and hopefully exceeding their expectations. Not only do materiality assessments allow organizations to make more considered decisions, the process itself contributes directly to deeper stakeholder engagement. So you're approaching your stakeholders. If you engage an organization like ThinkStep to do this alongside you, then obviously it sends a clear message to your stakeholders that you are committed to a detailed and robust engagement process. It says your views really matter to us as one of our stakeholders. But in addition to that, materiality assessments can help identify opportunities. And here I'm talking about business opportunities. It can also help manage risks, truly integrating sustainability into strategy, so it is part of business strategy, allows an organization to identify these business opportunities. And it also allows you to increase the value of your sustainability activities because you have that much better understanding of your stakeholder views and how you might work with them and alongside them along your value chain to actually achieve sustainable outcomes for yourself and those stakeholder organizations. Materiality assessment is a starting point, and we've worked with Adam and Waste Management for a number of years, but Adam's going to take over now and actually show us how, from these kind of foundational aspects of sustainable business practice, you can identify real opportunities and increase the value of your sustainability activities as an organization.
Thank you for that, Martin. So yes, a bit of back, 2 seconds on myself and why I'm here. So I completed a Master's in Environmental Management in the United Kingdom in 2010. That began my career change into sustainability. Graduating from Hertfordshire University, I gained graduate IEMA membership. And in 2015, I became a chartered environmentalist through IEMA because professional development is something I'm very passionate about, and everyone knows chartered accountants and chartered engineers, but there is such a thing as chartered environmentalists, even though it's not that common in New Zealand. And I progressed to a fellow member over Christmas. So that's important to develop your career. And when I returned to New Zealand, my big goal was to work for a large nationwide company that was serious around sustainability and hadn't really done much. And I was lucky to join Waste Management in 2017. So Waste Management is a very complicated business, as I'll quickly show you. And we've been on the same journey for 6 years now. So I'm going to share half about our journey and our sustainability and the materiality aspects. And then, as Martin says, the opportunities and how the business is responding to those to create opportunities for a changing world which is coming towards us. Who is Waste Management? So we are the largest waste service provider in New Zealand, but by a clear margin. We've got over 1,700 team members and 70 locations throughout the country. We have about 900 odd trucks. So we are either something like the second or first largest trucking company in New Zealand, and not a lot of people know that. So we have a massive collections fleet. We have the most advanced EV truck program in New Zealand. I'm not going to talk about that much today because we've been doing that for 6 or 7 years now, so I commonly talk about it. But we have 28 electric trucks on the road at the moment, and we're doing another 20 this year. We have 111 electric cars. Our main things we do is through our waste management brand is solid collections and landfills. Our technical services brand is all our engineering and medical waste. Living Earth, we're also the largest composting company in New Zealand, and the Flexi Bin brand. So the reason I want to share this show that we are a very complicated company. We do many things, and we have half our staff are out operationally doing stuff, which makes it quite challenging to engage. So when back in 2018, it's just like, how do we know what is a sustainable company? How do we know what is relevant for a future-focused waste company? And what we did is a materiality exercise. So our good friends at ThinkStep did some work for us in 2018 to identify the material issues that are relevant for us. And this is the great matrix that ThinkStep put together for us 5 years ago. And I'll just point out a couple of things in the top corner: compliance and health and safety. I'll just show you those now because you'll soon see our new materiality, and as you see, our health and safety are currently at the top in 2018. But just to give you a structure on how the materiality works for us and how it's changed our business. So you see the examples in red. The ones in red were the ones that all the external stakeholders said we should be doing, but we were not very good at. And that's things like education on waste, community engagement, communication, and so on. And to give you an example of how the strategy works is a good example is all the external stakeholders said, waste management, you're the largest waste service provider in New Zealand. You should be educating New Zealanders on the importance of recycling. And our response historically has been like, well, we're a private business. We get paid to take the money away. Why? It's the role of councils and government to educate New Zealanders. It's not our role. But the external stakeholders said, how in waste management, actually, you should be doing that. And that's a view we would never have gained if we hadn't spoken to the external people around us. And when we spoke to the external people around us, we spoke to some really challenging organisations. So we've got a primary school outside Redvale landfill in Albany. So you couldn't get closer to a landfill if you wanted to. It's a primary school, has all the truck movements and so on. We had an iwi based in Tauranga next to our giant oil silos. We had a large council contract that we had just lost. So as you can imagine, we got some good feedback from that council. We had 5 high school students from Manure High School to get the voice of the youth in South Auckland. It's a very diverse range of people to give us some feedback. Community engagement is a good example in educating New Zealanders on recycling. So when we learnt that that's something we should be doing, like how do we educate New Zealanders on recycling? So one of the actions in our sustainability strategy, which you'll see soon, was to create Keep New Zealand Beautiful, who everyone will know. They already had a teaching resource called Kiki the Kiwi, and Waste Management paid to turn that teaching resource into a kids book. And then Waste Management paid to put a copy of that kids book into every single primary school, every single intermediate school, and every single library throughout New Zealand. So that's us doing something different because of what we learned through our materiality. This is the strategy that came out in 2018. I'm not going to go too much into this because this is our old strategy now. But the way the process works is like, if I use the Kiki example, under our community, each one of these has 2 or 3 goals, and then each goal has 2 or 3 actions, and each action has a defined date and a defined owner. And each of those goals address those material issues we just looked at. So under our communities, we had educate New Zealanders on recycling, and then the action in 2018 was create the Kiki book. Now that goal's still there, but the actions are more digital in nature. In 2018, we launched our strategy, which you see in the top left there. And that basically set all our goals and what we want to achieve into the public arena. And then in 2019, the sustainability report is actually more of a progress update. So basically it says, this is what we achieved, this is what we didn't achieve. So you can see how we're going against what we said we were going to do. But also, it's a GRI or Global Reporting Initiative report. So we also included in that all the aspects to make it a GRI report. And that was our first GRI report in 2019. Then we did another one in 2020, another one in 2021, and the 2022 report is due out in the next couple of weeks. It has some of the highlights over the last 5 or 6 years. So under the our environment piece, we got our first carbon footprint audited by Toitu back in 2018, and we had no reference to sustainability in our procurement. That's now in our procurement. Under our communities, this is the Kiki book I referenced. But also another example of how we've changed how the business operates is we now have half-a-day leads that people can do to do in the local community. Only last Wednesday, I was out helping with Food Rescue, relabeling frozen butter for half a day, very cold fingers. So that's me and the team doing something that, and that's actually took 2 or 3 years to get approval to get this half day of volunteering across the line. But it's now in play for our team, so we can help. It gives value to our team members and also helps the community around us as well. The diversity and inclusion. This is interesting, and to talk about how things have evolved is what we're on the theme of today. So when we started this in 2018, we're like, right, we need to do something around diversity. And for the first 2 years, we had a funding program to recruit female truck drivers. Now that was great, but it was quite specific and quite narrow. And then, like in 2020, it's great we're recruiting female truck drivers, but it doesn't really incorporate good diversity and inclusion. So we created a division and inclusion committee, which has been up and running for the last 2 or 3 years. And we have great events such as Diwali and Chinese New Year and so on. But then last year we're going to realize, okay, so what's the next bit? And yes, we have great stuff for the corporate staff, but how do we engage our drivers, and how do we support other ethnic communities and rainbow communities. How do we go to the next level? So earlier this year, the Diversity Inclusion Committee created 4 subcommittees, and they focus on 4 key areas like mana whenua, employee experience, Maori and Pacifica, and driver opera inclusion. So now the Diversity Inclusion Committee has some more subcommittees to get us to the next level. So it's not we've done one thing and we can rest on our laurels. It's constantly evolved, and we've got this next third iteration of how we're going to increase diversity and inclusion within the company, which is great. For those who recognise the photo, that's Meng Foon, who was recently a Human Rights Commissioner. He visited us in East Tamaki when he heard what we were doing in the space, which is great to get recognition. And this is down at the bottom there is our cultural advisor. We call him locally as Mr. T. And he's fantastic. He's a senior member, and he meets with our managing director and the executives on a regular basis, and also is our link to the iwi and the local community in that cultural space, which is really, really good. Under our business, I've talked about EV trucks, so we've got that up and running. We opened our Green Star head office in Auckland about 3 years ago, and that won all the Green Awards, but also the Property Industry Supreme Award. And that's a great Green Star 5 rated building. So there's a lot of what's happened in a very quick summary over the last 5 years. And some other quick highlights to show where we've gone is you all know the government has an emissions reduction plan. It's a 400-page document. I've read it. I found it quite fascinating. Not everybody will find it fascinating as I did. But what was quite interesting is on about page 300, waste management was in it. And I didn't even know it was in it. It was quite bizarre. I was reading along and suddenly, waste management is a case study. It's best practice in the government's emissions reduction plan, which I think just shows you that the work we've done has been recognition in the wider community. And the Better Futures report is interesting. So the Better Futures is a great piece of work done by Kantar every year, and it's like a state of the nation around sustainability. And I know 6 years ago, I was like, I'd love to have waste management in the spontaneous, unbranded question, asking Joe Blogs on the street. And this year, for the first time, waste management was in there. Up there, so being referenced with obviously Fair Trade, Eco Store, Trade Aid, but there's a few people on the street who will say, tell me a sustainable company in referencing waste management. So that we're getting that acknowledgement in the wider community slowly, which is really quite exciting. Our next thing was obviously, what's next steps for us? So we did, again, with our friends from thinkstep, a new materiality. And what's really interesting is that because we've been doing this for quite a few years now, we can spot the changes. And this is where it gets really fascinating. So if you look at the top here, you'll see legal compliance and health and safety. So what I mentioned before in the previous 2018 materiality, they're still up there. So those haven't changed. But what's interesting is circular economy. No one mentioned circular economy as relevant to a waste business 5 years ago. No one. That's quite fascinating. And climate change risks. No one mentioned climate change risk as relevant to us 5 years ago. And ethical value chain, again, not mentioned at all last 5 years ago. So we can see what has changed in the sustainability space, or what's relevant for us over the last 5 years. It's quite fascinating to see. And some things have moved around and stuff as well. But yes, so this is just a highlight. And we now have and so some things are exactly the same, like compliance and health and safety, and a whole pile of new stuff as it popped up as well, which is quite interesting. So we now have a new strategy, which we've just created, and you are one of the first people to see this. Only really came out this week. And basically, instead of having those 5 generic buckets, which I quite like, but we now got some really ambitious goals. So we've taken those material issues and we've created some really crunchy goals to help. This is what our ambitions are to be. And you're about to see these 4 goals that we want to achieve. So the first one is we want to be carbon neutral. We currently have a carbon reduction of 2.5% reduction per year. Now that 2.5% reduction was best practice in 2017 when we created it, aiming for a 2-degree warming world. We now know a 2-degree warming world is actually not safe, and it needs to be a 1.5 degree warming world. But at 1.5 degree, actually the target needs to be a 4.2% reduction, which is quite a big step up. So waste management is looking at incorporating a 4.2% reduction of our emissions between 2020 and 2025, and then out to carbon neutral by 2050. And then in 2025, we will review where we're at and make ourselves go forward in there. Plus, also, we have under there incorporating the climate change risks, that new part in there. Next, we've got is being a great place to work. This is for our team. So making sure our team are safe, everyone's going home at the end of the day, mental well-being and all that. So this is obviously really important as well. And being a valued Kiwi sustainable business, we want to be valued by the community around us and make sure we're doing. And some examples under this is historically we've had financial frameworks and budgets and so on, but we want to incorporate financial and ESG together. So how do we get some reporting and metrics around financial and ESG together? Making sure we have a reliable service. When you have 900 trucks on the road, not everything works every day. So making our services as reliable as we can. Partnerships with iwi and growing that space. And also looking at the UN Global Compact on principles policies for the first time. So looking at some potential stuff on the international stage as well. And then our last country goal is we want to have a quarter of our business being circular services, which is really ambitious. So we want to have circular services being at least 30% of our business by 2040, and also working in the organic space as well. So this is and same as the previous structure. Under each of these 4 ambitions is a whole lot of goals, and then each goal has 2 or 3 actions. Each action has an owner and a defined date, so we know who's doing what and what they're supposed to be doing. And also all those material issues on the other slide are incorporated into each of these key ambitions we have for the company. So to show you, and as Martin said, about how we produce opportunities, I'm going to move. So this is the materiality and the strategy part. Now I'm going to talk about the opportunities part. So in January last year, in 2020, we launched a new sustainability consulting service. And we have 6 key aims. One is waste audits. So we've always done waste audits, but they've been a bit ad hoc and qualities hit and miss depending who's doing it and so on. But a lot of work with effort was done to create a standard template. We have a team now that reports to myself that runs them, all the audits throughout the country. This is definitely best in class in New Zealand by a long shot. The level of detail in these reports is amazing. The quality is fantastic, and they can be scoped. So if you want a massive detailed 5-day audit, or I want to focus in on this one small area, it's cheaper audit. We can scope it as required, which is really good. Also, the big advantage is that because we are the largest waste server in New Zealand, a waste service provider, we know what can and can't be recycled. So if we get a collection of something somewhere, we will know what the opportunities are to recycle it, because we know what to be collected and who we can sell stuff to. So the waste audits have been very, 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 very popular. Carbon footprint reporting. So anyone who does a carbon footprint will know that waste is one of the more complicated emission sources to capture. The landfill to waste to landfill emissions. Does the landfill have gas capture or not? Which landfill is it going to? We have a report which is ISO 14064 and TOI2 accredited. So if you are a TOI2 customer and you are our customer, then we can give you a report. And when you have your TOI2 audit, they will audit your air travel and all your other stuff. They will not audit your waste section, because your waste data is pre-confirmed as audit through waste management, and you don't need to do anything. And we charge to that because the cost of trying to calculate and work out your waste emissions is definitely going to take more resources than the small charge that we pay. If you don't want to pay, we offer the free tonnage report. So the tonnage report is always free. But for those that want to have the emissions calculated for you, that's another service that we've offered, which has been, again, quite popular. And then education and training. That's really important. We can educate people, obviously, on what goes in the white bin and some of our goals. So we have a range of services. So we have actually free videos on YouTube. So if you want to Google some free YouTube, some videos about waste education training, we offer that on YouTube. But we have bespoke ones we can create for you as well, which obviously we charge for. And then we can put people with companies' logos and stuff as well. So we have a range, depending on people's budgets are, we can help engage in the waste education space. We have waste management plans. So this is not when you're building, this is to get the consent to when you're built. So often we get asked to collect someone's waste, and then the room will be too small, or there's not enough space to turn the truck around, which is a nightmare for us and the customer. We can offer resource consents. They're Green Star compliant. This is actually, again, like waste audits, just been incredibly popular. So if lots of developments going on, and we can offer these high quality resource consent applications for any consent around New Zealand. Everyone will probably know method bins, great bins offered in New Zealand, method bins. If you're a waste management customer, we can offer these bins at a discounted rate, which is cheaper than going to method. And it's been a great service. And then Allheart. Allheart's been really exciting because we have a partnership with Allheart. And for those that don't know Allheart are they're trying to do social good. They want to make the community and everyone better. And waste is the tool. So they're not trying to save the waste problem. They're trying to solve the community problem. Waste is just the way they do it, which is a neat way of thinking about it. And they have three main services. But to give you a classic example, if you're moving office, traditionally what would happen is you'd order a skip, chuck all the old stuff into the skip. It would go into a landfill, and you'd buy fancy new furniture for your new place. What Allheart will do is they'll take all that old furniture and they will give it to a church or a community group or a school or sell it through one of their shops. And they will they guarantee to charge less than the cost to landfill. And we offer that through our customers through Allheart. And to give you another example about Allheart, the waste audits I talked about earlier, all the labour we do for Allheart, for our audits, we use Allheart community people. So be it Auckland or Christchurch or Hamilton, we get these people who are lower socioeconomic, and we pay really good wages for that short period of time. We offer them free lunch, and we get our audits done. So if you do an audit through waste management, you'll know you're doing social good through the labour we're hiring as well. And just quickly, last year we had 4 divisions. We now have 5 divisions. And we started a brand new division this year called Circular Services, and this is to really promote providing circular services to people. And first thing I'll mention is we've got a joint venture with Ali Access. Not everyone will know who Ali Access is, but Ali Access owns Marley. Everyone knows Marley. And together we are investing $12.5 million into BNC plastic recycling. And we're developing a new plant in Onehunga where we 2.5 million from waste management, 2.5 million from Ali Access, and 2.5 million from Ministry for the Environment. And basically, when you get your offcuts from your piping, for your plumbing, we will capture that into our facility, ship it up, and send it back to Marley to remake more piping. So it's a great circular solution. And I've got ComSpec there. ComSpec is a plastic recycler that we purchased only about 2 weeks ago in Christchurch to do something duplicate in Christchurch as well. Obviously, you can't have the circular economy without organics and compost. So we want to really grow our Living Earth brand. I know that some people who are very keen on anaerobic digestion, we're not fans of anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion makes sense in Europe when you're displacing coal. They don't make any sense in New Zealand when you've got 85% renewable energy. Compost is a great solution. Compost is it's soil nutrients, it's a stabilizer, it stores carbon. It's a great solution. Last year, we purchased and brought into New Zealand the largest plastic grinder. So historically, when you had anything bigger than, say, a wheelie bin or a plastic pallet or a plastic drum, they had to go overseas or go into a landfill. And we can now chip those as of last year. This is based in Tauranga. We chipped them up. We had 50,000 wheelie bins stored away. We've been powering through those, and those will get chipped and get sent back to make more wheelie bins. That's a good circle of life. And it's a solution that New Zealand did not have a year and a half ago. And then the last thing I'll just quickly top on, through our landfills, we are generate renewable energy. In Auckland, interestingly, Waste Management is actually the largest renewable energy company in Auckland. We power about 20,000 homes from the 2 landfills in Auckland. And we create tire-derived fuel, which goes up to Golden Bay Cement, which displaces coal in the cement making up north. And all these are new operations that have opportunities that have come out over the last couple of years. Here's a very quick summary of our materiality and how we've evolved and what we're doing to make waste management relevant for a very different future where landfills won't be where we make money, but circular services will be where we make money in the future. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Adam. Fantastic race through an amazing amount of work and achievement over the past 6 years. We are just on 2:31, so if people can stay with us, we've just got 2 or 3 questions, if you've got the time, Adam.
The
first one is around ensuring accountability. How do you ensure accountability when monitoring progress towards your targets?
Yes, so every action has an owner, and all those owners are someone on our executive. The only one person who has an action who's not on the executive is myself, and that's the carbon targets. And basically what I do is every 3 months I ask for an update. And then every 3 months I create a report update, and there's an internal report, a detailed report, which goes inside the business, and also an external update. And basically every 3 months I keep doing it. And eventually people end up doing stuff because you keep asking, so where's your update? Where's your update? Where's your update? Every 3 months, eventually things start happen pretty much. So I'm a big fan of reporting and regular updates and stuff. And obviously someone in the executive will most likely delegate to someone in their team, which is fair enough. But the executive is the person who ultimately has responsibility, and they always get CC'd and will request updates. So I found that's been quite an effective tool. You might not get traction in the first 6 to 9 months, but you eventually get traction eventually because they don't like having updates where there's no update, anyone else is providing updates.
Brilliant. Thank you. Mitchell has got a question around options for local circular services, especially for items like soft plastic in the South Island.
Yes, that's a great question, and there are many challenges around that. I can't give you immediate answers on that because it depends on the level of detail. But I mean, like glass is a good example. Glass is a great thing to recycle. It can be used time and time again. But the factory's in Auckland, so if you capture a whole part of glass, say in Invercargill or the West Coast or Christchurch, to get it up to Auckland is very carbon intensive. So is it worth this is one of the challenges on living on a long skinny island, that just because something is obvious and can be recycled like glass, how do you do it? And plastic, which is what the question is about, is also more tricky. So there might be a solution in other parts of New Zealand, which is hard. And do you labour intensive to get there or not? And do you have enough of it and stuff? And these plastic is lighter than glass. But yeah, so it depends on the type of plastic, and we have a 1, 2, and 5 is obviously 1s and 2s are the main ones that we do. And as long as it's clean and not coloured, then generally it can be moved to somewhere where it can be recycled.
Brilliant, thank you. Sarah Lee asked that question about crushing glass, why roading aggregate, and when there is a recycling option. So you've answered that one, thank you.
It's probably in Christchurch, I think they do that for that very reason.
Yeah. Charlie wants to know if Waste Management are pursuing chemical recycling of hard to recycle and age degraded plastics.
So we on our engineering team, we have the largest we have a massive chemical engineering team that deal with chemical waste. In regards to using chemicals to break down plastic, which is what I think you're referring to, I believe that's in the research stage. Obviously, they haven't seen anything commercially active in New Zealand that does anything in that space at this point. If and when it comes on board, we would definitely be keen to get into that space. Or if you know of something that I'm not aware of, please email me and let me know. It hasn't come out of the lab as far as I'm aware yet.
I think we've got time for one more. If you, from Ellie, what were the indicators that the strategy had to be updated? And was it a predetermined time frame, or did you meet the targets and therefore it needed to move on, or something else?
Well, that's a great question. So 2 parts to that. One thing I'll say is the actions are reviewed every year. So I don't know if people know Sir Rob Fenwick. So Rob Fenwick was the leading sustainability business person in New Zealand, which is why he was knighted Sir Rob. Unfortunately, Sir Rob passed away about 3 years ago. But Sir Rob was heavily involved with waste management. A lot of people know that he was the founder of Living Earth. And one of the last things he said to me before he passed away is that it's much better to set ambitious goals that you fail than to set easy goals you achieve, and they need to be refreshed every year. So every year, our overarching goals don't change so much, such as educating New Zealanders on recycling, but the actions underneath get reviewed every year. So we were constantly evolving our actions underneath anyway to progress. So the strategy, the actions were always being, like I said, they started with Kiki book and then moved to digital content over time. In regards to the original strategy, actually was out to 2025. So those goals existed out to 2025, and we could have stuck with them. But it just became obvious that what we were addressing wasn't necessarily relevant in the world. Just because circular economy is a good example. All it had in there was a focus on recycling. Recycling is quite a limited sphere and doesn't really cover what the circular economy does. So we just knew it was just getting out of date. Climate change risks. Again, it was just, and we were thinking about doing it earlier. Actually, 5 years is probably quite a big long gap, but COVID got in the middle. So because of COVID and also COVID hit our financial wallet as well as being able to get hold of people, it got pushed out to 5 years. We probably wouldn't have pushed it out. Probably wanted, I'm guessing, 3 or 4 years to do our next review. But can you hear Martin's answer on that one? He is a standard recommendation for materiality reassessment.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. We kind of recommend once every 3 years for a full-blown materiality assessment, and maybe in an interim, if there's a particular stakeholder group of interest to a client, you can do a smaller scale materiality assessment. But yeah, I suppose a minimum of once every 3 years seems to work really well. And your example there, where things like climate risk assessment, circular economy, not even spoken about in just over a few year period, it's an indication of how much value it brings to an organization. I'm going to have to stop it there. We're at 2:37. Thank you so much, Adam, for a fantastic presentation. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for everybody who stayed online. We will get to those questions and answers for you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and the long weekend. Ka kite.